La Resortera.
Hey, everyone. We are here for another week with Pura Vida's Perspective podcast.
Yes. How you doing, Sarah?
I'm good. So it's been a week, as you know, and I know that the week that we've had is going to carry in perfectly to this episode.
Yeah.
And things that we think are really important for you guys to know so that you stay safe and have a good experience here in the country. So Jairo, I want to give him a big shout out. He really came through big time. So big time. As some of you may know, we work with people who are coming to Costa Rica, whether they're moving, they might be on a trip, whatever it is. And we want to bring this topic to you because we're going to talk about emergencies, the importance of insurance, having an emergency plan, and really just making sure that you're not alone here in the country. Because I'm thinking, if we're going to tell you we got permission to share this story, we're not going to use names, obviously, but if this had happened and this person wasn't working with either of us,
right?
They essentially would have been alone here dealing with everything that we're going to tell you about what happened. So I get a phone call, what was it, Sunday
9 p.m. around so.
Yeah. And, it's one of my clients. They're here on a trip. They're here doing their exploratory, figuring out what town that they want to live in the Central Valley. And there was a car accident. And, their husband.
Bad one.
Really bad one. Yep. So her husband ended up in the hospital, in a public hospital. And, of course, she's frantic, just not knowing.
Not speaking Spanish at all.
Exactly. The public hospitals, you're not going to have usually English-speaking doctors there. It's going to be
not understanding a word they're saying to her.
Exactly. So she called us because, she works with us. And I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, I'm 2 hours away. It was already 10 p.m. when she called. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to get someone there with her ASAP. She can't be here alone. Who do I know? Jairo. I call Jairo. I text him. I was like, hey, this is what's going on. Can you help? And you were like, changing my pants already. I'm already changing my clothes. I'm on my way. What hospital is it? I'm going. So, yeah, you had quite a week. And
it's been rough.
I'm going to let you continue now because then you got, of course, I provided remote support and everything that we could do being far away.
Yeah.
So
it's been a rough week because it hasn't been easy for me because I got involved way too deep with him. So it's been emotional for me too, to a point where they had a phone call, days after, and I ended up myself crying on the other side of the phone. So they're customers of mine too, of the car rental area. As all of you know, I have a car rental agency. Sarah was taking care of them for looking for houses, place to come and live here in Costa Rica. And I took care of their car rental. So the accident was on the rental car that they got for me. I got to the hospital around 10:30 or so. The guy that met with us from the ins. Okay, to explain people that doesn't live here in Costa Rica, you got public hospital and you got public insurance called INS, Instituto Nacional de Seguro, INS. So there's two separate things: public healthcare, la Caja Costarricense del Seguro Social, and INS, Instituto Nacional de Seguros. Since it was a car accident, the INS had to pay La Caja for taking care of the accident. So when I arrived, she just gave out his passport. They took him into the emergency room, a shock room actually. And then when I arrived, they took me and put me on this little room and, started telling me the details, what happened, what was his condition, and then taking care of how were we going to proceed about the insurance. Thank God the car was, one, fully covered, and two, the insurance of the car is actually taking care of him as we speak because he's still hospitalized. So the guy was actually real nice. I end up spending the night with her. This is another thing. In Costa Rica, there's in public hospitals only one companion. They didn't kick me out because she didn't speak any Spanish, so I was translating for her at all times. The next morning, the doctor came to see him about 7 or so, and they told us we have to leave the emergency room because it was packed and crowded, and that only her will be able to come for visitation at 11. So we went through the car rental agency so she can sign all the release papers. Again, since she have full coverage, car rental will take care of everything. When we quote you, and I'm not trying to sell anything because this podcast is not about selling or telling what we do, but it's important for people to know that we provide you two insurances, basic insurance and full coverage. Full coverage has no deductible. So that was good for them too. So they were covered at all times. And then we ran some errands and I took her back to the hospital. And then I had to leave her because she was the only one that was going to be allowed to get in. And I told her, like, give me a call if, like, the doctors, nurses, whatever, whoever needs to speak to me, just give me a call. So as Sarah was saying at the beginning, it's important that you know somebody that can help you out. Thank God, I was there for her. Sarah was there for her on the phone too. But after that day, I've been their official translator for good news and bad news. And they released him like 2 days after from the public hospital and transfer him to the INS hospital. So they called me to make that transfer. So I have to leave my house at 6 p.m., drive all the way into town, make the transfer myself, stay with him in the emergency room, and, again, translate everything. And then I got her a 24/7 permission for her to come visit every day until today that we had a meeting, for the hospital people to let her know how is he and how are the next steps. But at one point, he called her through a nurse cell phone, and then I made the connection. And the stuff he was saying to her, I was on mute and on speaker. I started crying because it really got into me.
Yeah. I know it's been heavy for you this week, but, I just really appreciate that you were able to be there for them. And it just shows me again, how above and beyond, you do truly go for what you do and people that are in your life. And I'm glad that you could have been there physically.
No, and I do it because, at the end of the day, if I was at a place I don't speak the language, I would love somebody to help me out the way I'm helping them out. I'm not doing this for any other reason than being a kind human being, because I put myself in their positions, being in a country you don't speak the language, not knowing anybody. So that's kind of the purpose of today's podcast, to share our perspectives of what to do when you travel to Costa Rica or any other place, and what things you should be aware of or get to know. Like I always said in my Facebook page of Car Rentas Costa Rica and USA, get to know who you're working with. Because if you do, I know online bookings are very common these days, and most of the people, I would say 80%, 90% prefer to do their own things online. But if you book online and you have a situation like this, who do you talk to?
Yeah.
If you want to move to Costa Rica by your own, do your due diligence, your homework, and something like this happens, who do you ask for help?
Yeah. No, exactly. And I just think it's like people don't expect an emergency to happen. No one's coming on a trip to Costa Rica expecting, all right, like Tuesday after we get there, we're going to have an accident or we're going to have some kind of a medical emergency. And that's something that people really need. Every time we do a scouting trip with someone, we mention traveler's insurance, and we mention the importance so that would be one of my biggest tips to people. Number one, get traveler's insurance if you're coming to Costa Rica for a trip. Or if you're coming for your move and you're not fully covered under anything else yet, please don't come into the country not having something to cover you in case of accident or emergency. It's so important. I know the car, that stuff in their situation.
No, actually, I was going to ask you because you probably know about this topic more than I do. When you say buy traveling insurance, can you explain a little bit what do you mean? Like, what would it cover, or where to get it from, ideas or something? Because obviously you do this with more people than I do.
Yeah, exactly. And I mentioned that too. I was like, hey, make sure you're telling all your car rental people who are coming on their vacations, make sure that they have traveler's insurance. But you're right. So whenever I mention it in sessions with people, they might go, oh, no, it's okay. My credit card covers that. And I'm saying, no, it's not the type of traveler's insurance to cover a flight connection that you missed or baggage. Nothing like that. It's for medical emergency. So you want to make sure to have traveler's insurance in case of accident or emergency. There are some different companies that I recommend. So what we can do is we can put those down in the description of the podcast. So if anyone just wants to bookmark it or save it for the future, then they'll have access to it. But it's really affordable. I mean, unless you're 80 years old, it becomes less affordable. But overall, if someone's coming on a 10-day trip, it's kind of silly not to get it. Like, make sure to have something. Because again, you don't know when an accident or emergency is going to come up. Just that same night, I was pendant. The night that it happened, I'm pendant. I'm on, I got my cell phone, right? I let her know, right, my phone's on. Call me anytime, 24/7. Anyone that works with me knows they can call 24/7. So 12 a.m., I get a phone call, and I'm thinking it's because of that. Or it's because of you. It's you guys. It was a different client of mine. Said that her mom, I guess, had fallen down and broken both of her ankles. And I know her mom was here visiting her. And I think the insurance was fine. She's been a part of our program for a long time. They've already relocated. But, they were at SEMA Hospital. And they were saying...
That's private.
Private hospital. Okay. So they had insurance that allowed them to go private. And they... the doctor was saying that they need to do an emergency, surgery right then and there. So she was just trying to get some feedback as to, hey, is this normal? Or are they just suggesting this to, so we can pull out our credit cards? And I'm like, it's a good, reputable hospital. I highly, highly doubt they're requesting that you have a surgery on top of already what traumatically just happened. Yeah. If they're requesting it, I'm guessing
because you need it.
It's needed. So
now let me ask you a question. Were they speaking to them in English?
In SEMA, yeah. So that's the difference between public and private too.
Right. And it's important to mention that in public hospitals, you will find out people that speak English, but not everybody. In private hospitals, most of the people speak English. Now, something I want to mention too, for people that wants to come visit or for people that will be here and God forbid, but if you get into an accident or need medical attention, doctors in Costa Rica are great. Nurses in Costa Rica are great. You will be in great hands. I understand you're probably going to be scared or you're probably going to panic, but you or relative or whatever, they will be well taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to share a little bit about what you shared with me and maybe about the difference between the same person who had that accident. You said that they were receiving excellent care in the public system.
100%.
But maybe perhaps how they deal with family members or visitors might be a little bit different. So maybe
here's the funny thing. Security people, and I understand they're doing their jobs, but the security people at public places, they just don't have any empathy. And that's probably the way they train them. I don't know. But this is the way it is. They're very restricted, and I respect them because they're doing their job. They just gotta, have a little more customer service. The way they're telling people, or how explain to somebody why only can people be allowed in with the patients, or why you only have 1 hour visitation. It's at private hospitals. You can be with the patient 24/7 if they're not critical or like in how do you call it?
ICU or something.
Exactly.
Emergency. Yeah.
So if they're in a room like just getting better and better by the day, you can be with the patient. In public hospitals, you only have, depending on the hospital, either 1 hour or 2 hours. And that can be frustrating for someone that is not from Costa Rica because back in the States, Canada, or any other country, they'll be familiar with being with the patient 24/7.
Yeah, that would be scary. I'm trying to imagine myself in a foreign country. Something happens to my loved one, and I don't know the language, number one. They're in their public medical care system, and I don't know what that care is really like. Yep. And then I can only go visit them. And again, we're in a foreign country, like being on a trip, not this, that would be
frustrating.
Nerve-wracking. I mean, that would be really difficult.
And in this case, with these people that happen, I was speaking to the lady because her husband is the one that is hospitalized. I've been acting as a psychologist as well. Tried to calm her down, tried to explain her how the
bureaucracy
of Costa Rica works. And I understand it's hard for her to get it, but I've been telling her like, all right, the good news, he's in great hands. The doctors are good. Security and the people that let you in might not be that good or that empathetic with you, but he on the bed that he's on, the medical staff, the nurses, the doctors, everybody, it's making sure he's getting better every day and that he's good in good hands.
Yeah. Yeah. No, again, happy that you can be there.
Yeah, and it again, it's important to mention this for the people that is not from here. So again, God forbid this ever happen to anybody, but if it does, that you make sure that the medical staff is there to help.
Exactly. So number one, like have the insurance that's going to cover you in case of accident or emergency. That'll cover you in the public system if that's where you get taken. That'll cover you in the private system if you're able to be taken to a private hospital. And one thing I do have, so when we work with people, I always, these roadmap, this month-to-month plan, at the bottom, there's kind of things that someone should be doing after their move. And it would be in case of emergency plan. So some people don't really think of that. I have people who are moving here by themselves or maybe solo travelers. What are you going to do? Like, and I always kind of had a mental in case of emergency plan because I lived here for years without a vehicle, having a baby. She's 7 now. I have my car now. But what if I can't drive? Who's going to drive me in case of an emergency? Where am I going to go? Like, what neighbor in the past, okay, what neighbor can I go to in case I'm having an emergency, my child's having an emergency?
Who to call?
Who to call. So I would say, if you're moving or whatever you're doing, have an actual, and let someone know that, hey, you're my kind of emergency, in case of emergency plan.
Actually, this person now, she's Ubering back and forward to her hotel. And every time she gets in Uber, she texts me her ride. And when she moves from point A to point B, no matter how many times she moves, she texts me her ride and Uber information. Because again, she is lonely in this country. She doesn't have anybody else but me that she trusts. And I'm just glad, that even though I'm home, I'm being able to talk to her and tell her, all right, I got you. I'm following you. So it's important what Sara is saying. Get a friend in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Find somebody. Costa Ricans are super, super friendly. The other day, a customer of mine had a flat tire. And they were not being able to find the tools to change the tire. And they're like, all right, there's this guy that just pulled over. They're helping us out to change the tire. Super nice, super kindly. Another example, a guy had a run into a car accident backing up out of the restaurant. And the owner of the restaurant told him like, all right, come in, stay inside the restaurant. Don't talk to these people because I think they're trying to get money out of you. And just wait in here until, the cops arrive and everything. So Costa Ricans are nice. And I think we mentioned this in other episodes. People from Costa Rica is very nice. So try to get a friend. Try to get someone you can trust to provide your phone number or text them or talk to them in case, of an emergency.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's important. Have a friend. Have coverage. Again, if you're going to be renting a car, get the full coverage. If you're going to be coming here in general, please always be covered in case of accident or emergency. That's a non-negotiable. And have a friend.
Yeah. What else can we mention about this or any other thing that you would like to mention? I understand, it's complicated being abroad, feeling alone when things like this happens. But I mean, this could happen here in Japan, in Mexico, in Colombia, in Spain, anywhere in the world.
Well, since we do have some extra time on this episode, have you had your own medical emergency here at all? Have you ever had a medical emergency while living here?
Yeah,
what was your experience?
I had and I have used both, public and private. And again, when I had my situation and I was in the public hospital, very well taken care of. Not me, thank God I've been really healthy, but with my brother having, he had a condition and he requires surgery and everything. If you end up in a public hospital, just be patient. That's the one thing I can tell you. Just be patient. I had to take my daughter the other day. She was 3 days hospitalized in a private hospital. It was like being in a hotel. But my insurance took care of that bill. So I have private insurance as well as public insurance. So very different words, but if for some reason you end up in public, I mean, you just got to be patient. If you end up being in a private hospital, I mean, you just got certain benefits that you don't have in public.
Totally. So luckily I haven't had any kind of medical emergency. Not that I remember.
Just when you had your baby.
Just had my baby. So
Yeah,
I went through the public system when I was pregnant. So first I was living in Capos, then I moved up to Heredia. And this is a quick story. Well, still my experience. So I've dipped into public and private, and I did all my prenatal stuff in the public system. It was confusing for me. So at that time I was still learning Spanish. Now I'm fully fluent, but at that time, and it was kind of like, baby good? All right, good, okay. Like, whatever. Let me know when it's time to come back. Just get going from window to window. And it was obviously for non-emergency. It was just a pregnancy checkup. So I was waiting in a very long, I was waiting for an indefinite amount of time in a chair.
It takes a long time.
It does. It takes a long time. And then when I moved up to Heredia, I was at more of like a smaller e-vice. And I remember checking out the public hospital that was closest to me. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I ended up going private. And it's kind of a good story because, so my water broke at like 1 a.m. and I called an Uber. Well, first I got dressed and got my little bag packed and, did my makeup so I'd look cute for the baby. I don't know. I was reading books. I heard that, it doesn't always mean the baby's coming right away.
Right.
So I ended up then calling the Uber, went to the hospital, and I went to a private hospital. I went to Clinica Biblica and I went and checked it out before. I just to see if I needed to register or do anything in particular, get an idea of their maternity plans. I already knew what the cost was going to be like, so I'd gone there to find that information out. And I get there and they're like, well, who's your doctor? I'm like, I don't know. I came here. You guys have the doctors. That's what I'm here for. I'd moved around so much during my pregnancy that I didn't have one doctor.
Specific doctor.
And I didn't know that people had specific doctors. I didn't know that.
Okay.
Even the lady at the e-vice, maybe I had her number, but I think she was also on vacation during that time.
Okay.
So I just was like, they had to call in a doctor and everything, but I had a great experience there. Clinica Biblica is amazing as well. Amazing hospital, good technology. I did have to have an emergency C-section, and I was out the next day because that's all I could afford was one day in the hospital. Baby was born at 7. I was out the next morning. And my Uber drivers were amazing. So we're talking about Uber. I mean, just how nice Costa Ricans are, especially in those situations. I guess I should have thought before renting a place up a flight of stairs. They helped me up the stairs. They always helped me in and out of the car when I was recovering because then my family came to visit. So I was kind of Ubering back and forth to see them in their hotel, while I was all that stuff. But good experiences, I would say, but the public system can be very confusing if you're not. Now I could navigate it better. Now my Spanish is fluent. And I think in an emergency, if that was my only option, I would go.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But if it's a non-emergency, I also have private insurance. So if I can get to a private hospital or whatever it is, I would definitely still prefer to go there.
Yeah. I mean, no one wants to be in a car accident. And nobody wants to be knocked out and unconscious. But if you are, they're going to pick you up and bring you to public hospital.
Yeah.
So me as a patient, I'll be okay knowing that I'm in good hands. My family being out there not next to me are the ones that are going to be a little concerned. So that's when I put myself in their position of you want to be inside. You want to be in there with them and you can. Because, public hospitals only allow one person now. If you're in trauma or if you're delicate, they will not allow anybody in. So, again, from my perspective, what I can recommend people, it's know who you're working with. Not doing online bookings can always mean that you have a friend, because if something comes up, who are you going to call? Who are you going to talk to? I understand this lady, her Airbnb host, has been really nice to her, really understanding of the situation, extending her stay. I don't know how often she talks to her, but I mean, that's the good thing about, making your bookings through people, through somebody that can help you out in a place that you don't know where you're at or you don't know anybody.
Exactly. Yeah, from my perspective, you mentioned something that I already think is true as well, but also just making sure, again, traveler's insurance, I can't stress it enough, be covered in case of accident or emergency in Costa Rica. Even if you're here for 3 days, I don't care. Get the coverage. And again, well, also make sure that the car, whatever you're driving, is also insured. So insurance.
Yes, very, very important. Again, and we have discussed about this. I don't want to talk about what I do, but if you rent a car through me or through anybody, make sure the car is 100% covered, that you're paying for insurance. Again, you can choose between basic and you can choose between full. And I understand that sometimes depends on the budget. But if you get an old car, like we're in the year 2024, for these people that is looking this podcast in the future. We're in the year 2024. And if you rent an old 2012 car, you might not be as safe as being in a brand new car. So there are a lot of options for car renting in Costa Rica that has brand new cars. I mean, I understand that 2012 might be cheap, but you want to leave your safety on an old car? Now, I also understand cars are still cars and you can still get in an accident on a 2012 or a 2024, but the insurance might not be the same. So make sure you know what type of insurance you're getting, who you're working with, who your car rental person is, or who you can contact in case of an emergency.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
All right. So again, it's been a rough week. We just want to share a little bit of what has happened this week and make this kind of awareness on everybody that watches and listens to our podcast.
For sure. We want you all to come, enjoy your experience, be safe. But if something happens, we want you to be covered and not have to deal with things with the least amount of hassle as possible too.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're already facing something challenging. The less challenges you have on top of that, the better. So,
and if you need my help, give me a call. I'll run out.
True. He will. He'll be out there. All right.
All right. So once again, thank you very much, Sara. Thank you for making it all the way down here to San Jose. And hope you have a great rest of the week.
All right. Sounds good.
Pura vida.
Esto fue una producción de La Resortera.